Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's been a while since we've done a lure building thing, and so I have this in the freezer. That's this just dish soap and real hot water. But we are going to, I gave this a good rinse. Now I'm giving it a nice soap, but we got this deer tail that I got from one of my managers. We got this deer tail, and I'm going to show you how I process it. So right now it's just soaking, getting clean, and then we'll rinse it, dry it, and prepare it so we can tie some bucktail jigs. But really nice thick deer tail. Does have some burrs in the back here that you can feel. Quite a few actually. But that's where we're going to be making our dissection. Just right across the back here. Because I don't really care too much about the darker fur. Care more about getting as much of this nice white fur as possible. But that's just soaking in soapy water. It's gonna thaw it out so we can easily make our cuts and it won't be a frozen hide. But then it's got a pot lid holding it down into the water, so that's gonna clean it up, and then we'll let it dry for a while after it soaks for another couple hours. Then we'll let it dry. We'll dry it out a little bit too with the hair dryer. But once that all gets going, I will bring you with me. But yeah, I've been out fishing a lot, so haven't really done any tackle making lately. So I figured this would be a good chance and get this out of the freezer. I think my partner was kind of tired of it taking up space in there. Alright, so he took my partner's blow dryer and gave this a blowout. So now what we're going to do is I like to take a box cutter with the fresh blade in it. What you're going to do is you're going to find the base, you're going to find the middle, and you just are going to cut that tailbone out because you can feel it go all the way to the very end. And usually once you get going, and I like to do this side because you have all this nice white long fur. This is a nice deer. Have all this. I want to keep as much of that as I can. I don't really care about this side too much. I use it a little bit for like, if I'm tying like a multicolored jig where it's white on bottom and then I'll have this on top. I feel like that looks pretty natural, but otherwise mainly do white. So you're gonna just make your dissection. And just follow right along the bone. And you're gonna lose a lot of hair. Just throw that hair out of there. Alright, and so I have, you can start to pull this, or just like you're skinning a deer, you can just slowly slice away, because we're going to take a knife and we're going to scrape all that anyway. But I would suggest just kind of skinning that out a little bit. And just keep going like that. Eventually you can pull it out. Sometimes you'll pull out some hide, but it's not a big issue because you're going to have a lot of hair and you're going to be able to make a lot of jigs. Normally I wouldn't save this, but I plan on making a lot of jigs. Okay, so I got it in a bag because I'm just gonna leave this outside, and still want to make like a big mess and just have stuff floating around. But have this canister, and you're gonna liberally apply salt. Once you got it fleshed a little bit here. And it's going to pull out a lot of the moisture, and then we're going to repeat the same process of just like fleshing and salting, fleshing and salting. Got this little piece that got cut off, douse that in salt, so I got 2 canisters of salt. And I have all that was fleshed and have that deer tail in another bag. We can go throw that away. I want to take this and just leave it there. I'm gonna have it partially open so I can vent, but then I'm just gonna have this sitting outside so the wind doesn't get at that salt too much, but it can still breathe. And so yeah, let that rest for at least 24 hours, and you take the salt off. I usually let it sit a bit more, maybe about 2 days. And I'll come back and just keep repeating that process. So, kind of lazy with it. I'll take my time, so it'll just salt and then sit and salt and sit. So I do that, 3 to 4 times. So we'll see you in a couple of days to scrape again. Alternatively to salt, you can use borax. That works really well too, but I can't seem to find, I haven't found that in a while. Like I haven't seen it at Walmart or anything, so plain salt, that'll do it. No, we are not doing a catch and cook today, but what we are doing is we're going to dye some bucktails like I have in a previous video. So I have 4 little jars here, and I have a bucktail that I got from a coworker, and I just cut a section off the tip, and then I divided it out into smaller strips so I could dye them different colors. So we just have a vinegar and water heating up on the stove top, and then I got these different food colorings. So this one has red, yellow, and blue. Then I got this neon color one with pink, green, blue. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a pink, a blue, we're going to try to do like a chartreuse, and then maybe just green. So green, blue, pink, chartreuse, in no particular order. But have this heated up, so you don't want it like boiling, but I do want it to get fairly hot so all of that hair can absorb these dyes. And this is gonna be pretty concentrated, so I don't really have a specific mix or anything, but we're gonna see how this goes. I haven't done this since I did a video on it last time, but I had some bucktail and I wanted to tie a very specific pattern that you probably already see a thumbnail of. So yeah, we're gonna tie up a rainbow trout pattern and then go to catch some trout on it. So let that heat up and then we'll get to the mixing, stirring, whisking. Alright, so we got these poured out, and so I have the pink here. We'll do it to this one. And I'm not gonna be shy with, oh no. Oops. Oh well. Stir that up a little bit. And then I take the spoon and I get everything pushed down. And then I like to place that spoon, try to get it placed like on top, to kind of get everything kept down, pushed down. You can already see it's like taking on color. And so when you cut these up, you're gonna get like a lot of loose hairs, and you'll probably like lose some hair, but it's not a problem. But we'll get these others all mixed up and everything, and I'll show you that. Alright, so here we have our colors laid out. We have the pink, blue, green, and this was the chartreuse I was trying to do. I did quite a bit of yellow and then a couple dots of green, just a couple drops of green. It's 12:30. We'll probably get these out like 9 o'clock, and I'll just like put them on some paper towels and allow them to dry. But that's it so far. That's what we got. That's what we got cooking today. All right, y'all. So this might be like the best that I've ever had anything turn out. And so here was my recipe for success, is I left them in there for about 8 hours with a vinegar heavy mix, and then I heated that up to about 160 degrees. I flip and put a thermometer in there. I checked that water, didn't want it boiling, so 160 degrees, 8 hours, and then I'm just gonna let these dry out. But we got this, there's a chartreuse that I made up, the green, pink that turned out pretty red, maybe that'll lighten up, and then blue. And then kind of almost has like some pinkish to it, because that pink did get into it, but I do like that. I like that color. But yeah, that's how it turned out. So we will get to tying some bucktail jigs up once these get all nice and dried out. Alright, so I got these all dried out. I actually took a hair dryer to them like right after I pulled them out of the vinegar, and I got them to just dry out a little bit more. And so this is the chartreuse color, and then the blue turned out a more violet, like lavender purple color. The pink is very vibrant, and then the green is also pretty vibrant. I'm very happy at how these turned out. They like have very vibrant colors. As far as like using like food coloring and vinegar, I'm not sure of like the longevity of them. I haven't really had a problem with fading, but I also don't fish bucktails like a ton. So we're gonna tie up some like kind of like trout patterns. So I have this hook right here. This is I think a 1/4 ounce. So I have these 1/4 ounce jig hooks, ball jig hooks. And then I have these 1/16 ounce ball jig hooks. And then these ones have like a sickle shape to them, which I'm not too familiar with, but whatever. So here's how I think I'm going to do it. So I just have my pinch vise, a forceps, holding that all in place. So I'm just going to start with getting some thread laid on. And this is the bottom, how this flipped over. And so I'm going to take my bucktail and I'm going to grab, I have a little scissors here. This is just a mustache scissors, but it works really well. So I find with bucktails, like a less is more approach. So I'm just taking like a little pinch. I think that you get better hair movement when you have not as much. So this is going to be the bottom color because a lot of fish just have white bellies. Do a couple wraps, get that locked in, and then I'm going to turn it over. I'm actually going to take, and you can spread this a little bit, get a little bit more even. Distributing on your jig head. All right, now we're going to take not very many strands of this pink. I want this to be a little more subtle. So just a little pinch. So I'm gonna lock that into there. Okay. And then for the top, I'm just going to, so you can either go more vibrant. And I would do one of these colors as the top, but I'm gonna go a little bit more natural. I'm just gonna get some of this darker bucktail. And that's gonna be my top. Now we're just going to tie that in. If you don't have one of these bobbins, I would suggest getting one. This makes this a little bit easier. You could use your fingers, and then this is just like sewing thread from Walmart. So it's literally the cheapest way to like do your own jigs. And a couple wraps and that all looks good, and you can whip finish or whatever tickles your fancy. Usually I just do a couple overhand knots. Because I'm just gonna end up, you know, using an adhesive. Alright, and then if you have like any extra hairs like poking out up here, you can just take that box cutter razor and just trim that up. I got a couple hairs that I'm going to trim up. Just to give it a little bit cleaner of a look. It doesn't really matter a whole lot, I don't believe. And then at this point, if you wanted, before you put any adhesive down, you can manipulate that hair a little bit, like how you want it to lay. You could twist it around a little bit. Did get some dye on my fingers from that pink because I didn't rinse it off or anything. But that's gonna be fine. You just have to be careful working with your white. But that is literally like the most like cost effective and affordable way you can like make your own bucktail jigs. Like there's literally not a lot going into these. And so what you can use some super glue, and that's gonna hold up really well. One of the guys that I know that ties flies in my area, I was talking to him, and he just uses, he's like, oh, just to lock those threads down, he's like, I just use a little bit of nail polish clear coat, and that'll soak into that thread a bit, and you'll be good to go. Said you don't have to buy like the really expensive fly tying epoxies, so you could do this, or you could use super glue. Usually when you like really saturate these with super glue, you know, they end up with that kind of white powdery look. That's why I've been preferring doing this lately. Now this will dry hard and it'll get into that thread and dry those thread hard, so you really don't have to worry about it. And it's really cheap. You can get one of these for like $1 at the dollar store. And you can get thread at the dollar store for like $1. And you can go to Walmart and get jig heads. So it's just a really easy, affordable way to get into tying up jigs, making your own lures. That's how I got started, just by tying up some fur jigs. But let's make something a little more vibrant. Oh, if you had like flashing, you could put flashing on here. I didn't want to dig up too much stuff out, so I didn't dig that up. But some flashing would look really good in there. Some of that like some of that tinsley flashing, just add a little bit to it. But I've been fishing with, there's like a lot of lakes around me just stocked trout. And so I caught a few fish using these jigs, and it's a little bit bigger, so they're gonna commit to something like they're pretty decent fish. Then you can trim up that back section if you'd like to as well. Let's tie up a smaller one. Oh, never mind, I have a big one already in the vise. Oh, whatever. And these bucktail jigs are like pretty, they're definitely a multi-species lure. I had like a big 30-inch pike follow one last year. I wouldn't commit to it, but you'll get a lot of smaller pike. My girlfriend actually has her PB largemouth on a bucktail jig in the fall time, so just throwing that out there to you. I'm going to do a white belly. I'm gonna do white and chartreuse. Oh, that's a little bit too much. Again, I have like the less is more kind of thought process. Alright, that all locked in. Adjust those a little bit. A little bit of that pink is rubbing off onto the white, but that's just extra color. That doesn't bother me. Alright, let's take some of the chartreuse. I really like how this color turned out. I was a little worried about it. I thought it'd be like, maybe turn out a little pale, but I think those extra drops of green really did it to darken this up a little bit. There's this guy at work, big fly fisherman, big into fly tying. He actually, since these bobbins are so cheap, he just has multiple ones loaded up with different colors, different size thread. And then he took a deer shed and he drilled holes into it, and then each bobbin just sits in that deer shed, and that deer shed just sits up like this on the tines, and then he just has multiple bobbins all ready to go. Makes his process like a lot easier. So I thought that was kind of neat. Yeah, touching this This white definitely adds some pinkness to it, but and just go over it. Any loose hair you can get out. But that's gonna be a really good stained watercolor with that chartreuse. That would be a good walleye color too, if that's your prerogative. Oh. Got a little overzealous and cut a thread, so this time we'll use some super glue. And the great thing about that super glue is it dries really quick, so you could have this little setup in your vehicle and literally be at the water doing this. So let's do a smaller one this time. Like I said, you can trim up the ends of that, but I'll do that with these smaller ones. But I like that back half. So like up here is really stiff versus back here is like not quite as stiff, it's a little more wispy. So I like using the back half. So if I'm making a shorter jig, I'll just cut it shorter versus trimming that wispier stuff off. Let's make a more vibrant more of like a neon trout pattern. So we're gonna start off with a little chartreuse. Oh, not even tiny. Didn't even get any thread started. With some of these brighter, like these brighter colors, there's not like a ton. A lot of the water around me is like fairly, lost quite a bit there, didn't get it cinched down. So a lot of the water around me is like fairly clear. So like these more vibrant colors would work really well, and some of that less clear water. And especially for like panfish, like bluegill and crappie and perch are going to gobble these up. And these, but like I said, these bucktails are so easy to fish. Like you can do, you don't have to do a lot to get them to catch fish because that hair just like moves in the water really nice. We'll get some pink. And we're gonna get some green. And last video I did where I tied up jigs, I just did green and pink. It's like a watermelon color, but this one's like a little more like a little more trouty, if you will. But definitely a good stained watercolor. And then if you put these in your tackle box, like, be sure to give them like a good grace period to like dry out before just sticking them in your tackle box, because his hair will hold in water for a while. So I usually like just give him like some really hard flicks, and that'll get a lot of the water out, and then just like set it somewhere where it can dry out before putting it in, or else you're gonna have stuff rusting up in your tackle box. And that's just not a good deal. But anyway, I'm gonna get a couple more tied up, and then we're gonna go and test some of these out.